Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another video. In this video, I am finally getting around to reviewing this monstrosity that I've had for a few months. If you've been watching my videos, you saw the video where I talked about when I bought it at Goodwill. And if you watched my desk tour video, you also saw this unit in that. This is a fairly recent acquisition. I got it from Goodwill for a whopping 20 bucks. It is a Sony TC WR661. And it's a pretty full-featured tape deck, actually. And you know, it works great. There's zero issues with it. So I'm going to start off by just powering this bad boy on here. It makes a little bit of a motor noise when you first start it up. Not sure why. It only lasts a few seconds. And you know, we got all sorts of features on the deck. I'm going to show you one of my favorite ones real quick here. I'm going to play one of the tapes. We're not actually going to hear it because of copyright reasons in this video. But I want to let's fast forward this a little bit. One of my favorite features there are the basically the VU meter of the music playing. I enjoy that. Just to me, it's a nice little touch. In fact, I'll just move in here real close to the controls on this side, so you can really just see what we're looking at on this. Of course, are the controls for Deck A. This is a power button. The power button, obviously. I assume that's an IR window for a remote control, which I do not have. Of course, we got, like I said, the bouncing VU meter, and it'll do that for either deck that's playing. So if I play, let me get to where there's some actual music on that one. Obviously, it'll do the same thing for both decks, A or B, whether you're listening to it. And you got the and the tape counters are digital on this, and if you want to reset it, you just, you know, boom, resets the tape counter. Yeah, and this is an auto reverse deck, so you can play tapes in either direction. Of course, that's the normal direction, and if I hit this button, it's going to flip the head and start playing it in the other direction. So, of course, same thing. Fast forward, rewind. We all know about fast forward and rewind. So, yeah. Go ahead and show off the other side, which has, of course, that's Deck A, which is playback only. Deck B, playback and record. Now, of course, we're going to talk about controls over here because they're related to, there are some recording, playback controls over here, as well as just, you know, ones related to playback. Okay, so let's talk about each one of these. I'm going to zoom in a bit. That way, maybe you can actually, yep, you can see that. Okay, this one here is the direction control, right? If you have it in this first slot, this will not play tapes in both directions unless you know, actually hit the button on the bottom to flip the heads. If you leave it in this first one, unless you tell it to play a different direction, it will play like a tape deck without auto reverse at all. No auto reverse unless you tell it to. If you flip it to the middle position there, what this will do is it will play your tape in a continuous loop. Forever, basically. It'll play Deck A, or not Deck A, Side A, and then auto reverse, you know, Side B, auto reverse back to A, you get the idea, right? Now, if you do this relay one, that's very interesting. Basically, if you put it in the relay position, what it does is it will play Deck A first, then auto reverse, then play Side B on Deck A, or, you know, Side 2, and then it'll start playing Side A on Deck B, and then it'll flip to Deck B on Side B, which is pretty cool, actually. It's basically, you know, and the limit of it doing this is 5 times. It will only do relay play 5 times total. So that to me is an interesting feature of the deck. And then over here we've got your Dolby noise control. You know, you've got, of course, no noise reduction, Dolby B and Dolby C. I will get to the point here in the video where we do some comparisons between the various noise reduction schemes on this, just so you guys can get an idea of what it sounds like. Over here you have the recording level controls. You can set it manually if you want to, but this deck does have basically auto detecting of recording level. That's what I tend to use. I let the deck kind of determine what level to set the recording level at, because I think you're going to get better sounding tapes that way, rather than just, you know, cranking this thing all the way up or cranking it, you know, whatever on your own. The auto just works a lot better. And basically, when you start, when you're listening to your source before you actually record, it'll flash, and then when this goes solid, that means it's detected the optimum recording level for, you know, your tape type or whatever. So that's what I use, but of course you can set your recording level manually if that is your choice. Moving down, we got our next row here, and I'm sorry, the shadow of the camera is kind of blocking this a bit. See if we can angle the light a little better, maybe, to overcome that a bit. These are controls related to dubbing. Honestly, I'm not going to ever dub tapes. I mean, this is 2016. Any recording I'm going to do are pretty much going to be from, you know, either digital sources or a turntable. I'm not going to make copies of tapes. So to just be honest, I have not at all messed with the dubbing controls yet. So I don't really know how they work, because it's just not something I've done, and probably I don't see myself doing it. And then the next row are just your standard recording controls. When you want to record, you hit record, and that kicks off the auto volume level detecting process. And to actually get it to record, you hit, not play, but you know, well, I guess it's kind of like the play, and then that actually starts the tape moving. So to record is actually 2 steps. You hit the record button, you let it kind of detect the auto level of the source, and then you hit that button. That actually starts the recording process. Whatever. This thing here called record mute, what that does is it will basically put a 4-second blank spot in the tape. If you want, yeah, it just creates a 4-second blank spot is all record mute does. That's it. You want to insert 4 seconds of silence, hit that button. That, of course, that will pause recording and playback for deck B. It's a pause for both recording and playback. Then, of course, you have your standard fast forward, rewind, stop, and then, you know, play sides for both auto reverse. So there you go. So that pretty much covers the controls. So what I'm actually going to do now, guys, is I am going to take one of the tape doors off. That way you can kind of see inside, and you can see the tape in operation. So give me just a second, and I'll be back. Now, guys, I decided maybe I'll just show you guys how easy it is to take the tape doors off of this thing, because a lot of tape decks you can do this. It just literally just, well, comes off real easy, slides off, whatever. And this is obviously deck A we're doing this with. So, right now, let's zoom in, that way you can just really see this thing in operation. Zoom in there, nice on the heads, or the tape head, and let's go ahead and hit the play button here. And there you see the head move up, and you see it engage. And the camera's going blurry on me. Come on, camera. That's better. And let me go ahead and hit this button. Head flips, auto reverse. And again. Good stuff, right? And of course, there, hit stop, and it lowers. And rewind. And fast forward. I'm not sure why the head lifts back up when you're fast forwarding and rewind. Somebody who knows as much about tapes, if you want to tell me why it does that, you would think it would stay down because it's not actually playing, but whatever. And of course, we're just resuming play again, and obviously just see the reels moving in the tape. Exciting, right? So that's basically what she does without the door. And if you want to replace the door, pretty simple. Alright guys, it's time to take a cursory look inside the tape deck here, and you know, just to check it for cleanliness and all that. And it looks pretty damn clean on the inside. Not surprising, considering, you know, it looked like it was a relatively well kept unit, considering I had the original box and everything. We got obviously the power transformer there. That's where the power lead goes in, some sort of circuit board it looks like. I know, I'm such an electronics expert. Then we got a large circuit board there. That's where the RCA jacks are on the back. Looks like we got some control cords and all that going into the actual, and another circuit board. And of course, back here we have the belt assemblies and everything for the tape decks. I'm not going to mess with them since obviously they work. Looks like we got some electronics over here. Because there's a screen on this side, so there's a circuit board. And there's another circuit board on that side, corresponding with the controls. Now, I know I do plan on cleaning the tape heads and such in this before I really start putting this unit through its paces. But I really don't have to do too much internal cleaning back there since it's already really clean. I don't really have to do anything to the inside. No dust, no buildup of anything. But I am going to do a bit of work, you know, on the parts that I can see. I'm going to do a little research on the internet how to do this. I think it's going to be a fairly simple procedure to get this up to snuff. And of course I'm going to clean the exterior of it real good before I put it into my system. I just got to figure out where I'm going to put it. I have some ideas, and obviously when I get to that part of the video you'll see where the hell I put it. So yeah, that's it for the look inside. You know, on to the next part. Okay guys, in this part of the video I'm going to demonstrate on just a blank tape the differences between no noise reduction, Dolby B and Dolby C on this tape where, you know, I recorded the music, but of course this is just going to be blank. So yeah, here we go. I'm going to start playing back. We're going to have no noise reduction whatsoever. Right now I have my amplifier turned up to maximum volume. And right now there is no noise whatsoever coming through the system. If you do hear noise in the video, it's my computer's fan. It's certainly not the stereo or anything coming through the stereo. You'll definitely hear a difference when I hit play on the tape player though. So let's go ahead and start the tape. And that's fairly loud and staticky, pretty obvious. Makes the noise level roughly 50 decibels. Let's go ahead and switch on Dolby B and see how that sounds. That takes it down about 5 or 6 decibels. And finally, Dolby C. It may or may not be audible in the video, but I can hear it, but it's very low. And that takes it down a couple of more decibels, about 3 more decibels. So, at least on blank tape, you can definitely hear the difference between, you know, no noise reduction, Dolby B, and Dolby C. It really is quite striking. Let's go ahead and just crank back on to no. Yeah, and there we go with no noise reduction whatsoever. And it really makes an absolute giant difference in sound quality. So, yeah, now whether this is going to translate into which music sounds best with no noise reduction, Dolby B or Dolby C, we'll have to find out in the next part of the video. So, see you guys in a minute. Alright guys, in this part of the video we are going to do some listening to some samples. We are going to listen to the original digital sample, then we're going to move on to no noise reduction captured onto tape, then we're going to listen to Dolby B, and then finally Dolby C, and then we're going to boomerang back to the digital original. I will call out though what we're listening to before we listen to each one, and if you follow along on the screen, it's actually labeled. The one that actually has a title on it is the digital original. Then there's one that says no NR, that obviously means no noise reduction. Then we got Dolby B and Dolby C. So anyway, I'm going to be quiet now and we're going to do some listening. So I'm going to call out obviously each one. So we are going to start off with the digital original. Let me go ahead and mute myself. Okay, next up we are doing no noise reduction. Mute myself again. Okay, next up we are going to be doing Dolby B. And finally, Dolby C. Okay guys, we're done with the samples. Now, I know that's not the best sample to use, but it does kind of give you an overall idea of this deck's performance. The reason I chose that track is it is the closest thing to the type of metal, my favorite style of music. It's not a very great, it's not a very good track, but it is at least somewhat representative of that type of music. One good thing about it, it's a nice, highly compressed loudness war track. So really gives you an idea of how those types of tracks translate onto the tapes. So, yeah, it's not the best sample, but not the worst sample either. Like I said, hopefully this brief overview gives you an idea of the sound of this deck with Type 1 tape. But this is not really the juiciest thing I'm going to do on this. My next video I'm going to upload will be a pretty comprehensive comparison between Dolby A, I'm sorry, not Dolby A, no noise reduction, Dolby B, Dolby C, and the digital original. And it will be a copyrighted song, but I'm uploading that entirely separate from this video. So if you want to see that, check it out. If not, feel free to skip over it. So anyway, that's it for this part of the video. I am now going to stop recording the screen capture, and we are going to, I'll come back, give my conclusions on the deck and tapes in general and all that fun stuff. See you guys in a second. Alright guys, now, obviously, you got to hear some samples of what this tape deck sounds like. And it sounds, pretty decent. Now, this tape deck sounds much, much better than the tape deck that I have in my JVC mini component system, right? It does sound a lot better than that. But, are cassette tapes a high fidelity format? I would say not really. They can be decent, but they're not hi-fi. I mean, my pre-recorded tapes, okay, that I've bought, still just don't sound that great, especially compared to the CD. The CD always wins over these cassette tapes. It just does. I consider cassette tape to be, as far as the format goes, I consider it to be an interesting and fun one. It's not really much about fidelity with cassette tapes, but they are fun to play with. At least, for the most part, especially when it comes to pre-recorded tapes. Pre-recorded tapes aren't as interesting to me as ones you make yourself, because honestly, the fidelity on the pre-recorded tapes is very much hit or miss, and yeah, it's just not there compared to other formats. Vinyl and CD just sound better than cassette, at least pre-recorded cassette, period. Now, I am looking forward to testing out some Type 2 and Type 4 tapes some point in the future. I mean, the only tape really that I had to experiment with was this single. I'll show you guys the tape type. It's just a standard Type 1 tape. Nothing special about the tape. It's just a standard Type 1 tape. So, yeah, Type 2 and Type 4, it might sound a lot better, but of course, pre-recorded tapes never came on Type 2 or Type 4 tape. They were always pretty much Type 1 with Dolby B. So, yeah, that's pretty much as good as pre-recorded tape got. Ones I make myself may sound much better. I'm not sure. So, anyway, should you buy a cassette deck? If you want to have some fun with something and you enjoy this kind of crap, sure. They're fun to play with. Are they high fidelity? No. Are you, quote, missing out on something great if you don't get one? I would argue not really. They're just, but they are a hell of a lot of fun, and at $20, I think that was money well spent myself. So, now, if you're asking yourself what sort of cassette deck should you buy, I'm going to just kind of steal some of Techmoan's advice, and I would suggest that you buy a tape deck that was released roughly, if you're going to buy a used one, okay, buy one that was released towards the end of the cassette era. This is from, 1997 or so, so yeah, it's old, but it's, as far as the cassette era goes, that was definitely the end of the cassette era. And you should buy one from that time for two reasons. One, if you buy one from that vintage, it's going to have a lot of good features in it that older decks may not have. Okay, and also it's more likely to work without you needing to replace belts or really do anything to it. I had to do nothing to this deck to get it to work. So those to me are big reasons to buy newer decks. Now, there is one final thing that I want to cover in this video, and that is maintenance of a cassette deck. And yes, these do require some maintenance, not a ton, but a little bit. It is a good idea to clean the tape heads. And of course, tape heads are in there. And how do you do this? Rubbing alcohol. That's what I use. It's pretty universal what people use now. It's better to have 90%, or if you can get it, 70% will work. Basically, you just, get some on your Q-tip, and basically you wipe down the tape head. And that gets the dirt and gunk off the tape head. What you want to do is you want to basically make sure when this comes back that there's no black dirt or gunk on it. And once that there isn't any, that's how you know your tape head is clean. Now, what you also want to do after you clean your tape head is make sure that the components in there dry before you put any tapes in there. A minimum of 5. I mean, hell, I think I didn't put a tape in this thing for like, I don't know, a couple of hours after I cleaned it. Just to make sure that everything had evaporated out. I wanted to make sure that it was 100% dry before I put a tape in there or tried to operate the machine in any way. I don't think you normally have to go a few hours, but I did just to be ultra cautious. It's up to you guys how much you want to, how long you want to go, but I recommend waiting a while. Now, how often should you clean your tape deck? Well, if you buy a used one, like I did, clean it as soon as you get it. You want to clean the tape heads as soon as you get them, okay? Now, if you've already cleaned them and you just want to maintain it, it depends. I've heard some people recommend doing it, every 10 to 20 hours or so of playback time, record time, or whatever. Really, just use your ears. If you start to hear any sort of degradation, you might really want to clean the tape heads. Just good sound advice. Now, another topic around the maintenance of tape decks is some people believe in demagnetizing, some people don't. And I want to give a shout out to Chris at Dixieland Farms for this tip. He said to basically test out demagnetizing by just recording blank space on cassette deck B. So I did to see if there was any sound quality difference, and well, no, there wasn't, because when you record blank space, I guess it demags the heads, or demags the head on the record deck. So there's no difference that I could tell sound quality wise between the two decks. Now, what was strange about the decks is after I ran deck B blank for a while, there was a discrepancy in the sound between deck B and deck A. Deck B sounded terrible. After I demagged it for a while, it was like the channels wouldn't always play back on stereo. Like the left channel would go out or whatever. And the strange thing that fixed it was I just had to record actual program material, like actual sound, onto a tape, and then both decks sounded absolutely fine. So, whatever. Strange, I know. So, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. I really thank you if you did make it this far into it. As always, if you did like what you see, please thumbs up, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks a whole lot for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.